For people who want to know what is the Keith Andrew Network, the whole point of my talk show is to show you that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities to never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be, so prove them. Still amount to something.
Hey everybody, I was just interviewed by Keith Andrew on the Keith Andrew Network, and it was such a great experience. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope you do too. Please watch and subscribe and enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Keith Andrew Network. I am your host, the one and only Keith Andrew. This is episode 951. We are on the road to 1,000 as this is episode 951. Today on the Keith Andrew Network, we are here with upcoming professional book author of the hit series of not one, not two, but several great upcoming kid books, adult books, books that will stretch the imagination. Now, with that being said, today's guest is the beautiful and talented Miss Victoria. Welcome to the Keith Andrew Network.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, the honor's all mine. So the first question, it's called icebreakers. So the first subject we're going to talk about is tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Victoria Hyla Maldonado. I'm the mom of twins who are 7 years old. And I write and edit professionally. I do freelance editing and publishing and writing, and then I also write novels for women and children's books. And got, 2 cats and a dog. All the stuff.
No, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And actually, you hit the nail on the head. One of the questions I was going to ask you is, have you ever thought about ghostwriting?
I have thought about ghostwriting, but I love when writers have their own voice. And so I typically steer away from ghostwriting and encourage people to put all their ideas down. And then I like to step in kind of later in the process so they don't lose their voice. Because if I'm ghostwriting, it's going to be my voice. And I'd rather hear the uniqueness of the writer's voice and then kind of smooth it out. I like it to smooth it out on the process. But I'm happy to coach people on their writing. I just put together a poetry anthology for kind of a networking woman that I know. And yeah, so I love when writers can have their own voice in their own work. So I typically steer away from ghostwriting, but if it's the right project, I'm totally in.
Hey, well, if you're ever interested, I would love to hire you to write my book. And I know you say what you're saying should be in your own voice. Mm-hmm. I tried to write my own book. It was a complete disaster. Never gonna do that again. I'm gonna stick to my strengths. But we can always talk about that off the air. But the question I'm going to ask you, going back to the icebreakers, is what did you major in college? And was this something you wanted to do from the start, or was it a plan B?
Yeah, no, I majored in English just as a literature base. And then I did a minor in education and a minor in French. So right out of college, I was a teacher. And then that didn't sit all that well for me. And then I went into editing for like the next 6 years and then went back into teaching, but I taught French and English as a second language. And then I got back out of that and went back into editing. So kind of bouncing back and forth. And but I've always wanted to be a writer. I've wanted to be a writer since I was probably 9 years old. And so it's always, this kind of was a roundabout way of getting there, but I got a lot of professional editing experience in the way of getting here. And now this is what I do. So.
Absolutely. Now, the last 2 easy questions I want to ask you is, were you a party animal or study nerd? And did you ever do any sports growing up?
Oh my God. So in high school, I was a study nerd. In college, I did a good 50-50 balance between the two. I studied really hard, but I also played really hard. And then sports, I played volleyball, softball, and tennis throughout middle school, high school. Nothing in the college realm with athletics, though. So
You know, it's funny, on my show, I actually have something for the younger audience because, when you're like a teen and you're going in high school and you're like, oh, well, my show's for everyone. It's a variety show. But for people who are kids and whoever, they may not take to the interviews. Hey, I interviewed actors. I interviewed people with and without disabilities. I interview, for wrestling fans. But then I'm like, okay, let's do something a little more of variety because that's what we're about. We love everything. So I came up with the Dumbo Challenge and the Human Pyramid Challenge. So with that being said, did you ever get the chance to do one of those human pyramids?
I have done a human pyramid. There's a group that I run through my church called Alpha, and we have like a weekend away. And one of our things during the middle of the day is like a photo scavenger hunt. And one of the photo scavenger hunt challenges is to do a human pyramid. I'm usually on the bottom because I'm stronger than a lot of the other people. So I've never been at the top though. I think that would be fun, but.
Well, with that being said, would you be interested in taking part in the Human Pyramid Challenge for my show?
If I could, I'm not sure how I would do that virtually.
Well, we don't have a studio, but we can definitely talk about it off the air. For kids out there, they're like circus acts and gymnasts. So on the Keith Andrew Network, there is a little bit of everything, but as you know, it is very professional, of course. So the next question I want to ask you is a little bit about the writing. So the first question I want to ask you, as a writer, what experience do you have in reading others?
In reading other
people's... reading. Yes, reading others.
I'm not understanding the question, maybe. I don't know.
I'm sorry, I kind of buzzed that.
Sorry.
So, it's a question you would ask a coach, but I'm changing the coach to a writer. So, as a writer, what experience do you have in reading other people?
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I do a lot of coaching and other writers. Because I do a lot of editing. So like I said, I just put together a poetry book for somebody. All the poetry was hers, but she needed it kind of tightened up and put it together. I also, I do a lot of bio work, like professional bios and resumes. So in that sense, I'm coaching. And just with kids, I do a lot of work with young writers. I just helped an 8-year-old girl publish her first children's book, and I was able to guide her through the process and coach her on, story elements. She was incredibly good to start with. I didn't have to do all that much, but I helped her kind of, see where there might need to be little additions to her work. So I do like to lead others in trying to improve their writing, which is super fun.
You just gave me a great idea, and now I'm going to turn that into a question. With being a professional writer, and you wrote hundreds of books, we're going to get to that in a couple of minutes, but do you think, well, for an example, from my talk show, do you think you can lead me in a better direction of writing, honestly, writing better questions to ask people?
I mean, it's about listening to the people and really engaging in what they're saying. And so you just came up with that question on the spot. So that's amazing. That's so good. And but no, it's really about engaging with the topic and really being authentic with what you're doing. And that's how I work with writers. I mean, writers who write to make the money and to hit a certain trend that's happening, that's less authentic. I mean, when people write, they should write from their heart and write from their own personal experiences. And those are the topics. And even if it's fiction or nonfiction, either way, those are the topics that really resonate with people. So I like to encourage writers to do that. And so, but yeah, I mean, and it happens with questions too. I mean, as a teacher, I was always writing test questions. So maybe I have some insight. I'm not sure.
No, absolutely. Now, next one I ask you is, as a writer, what are your values?
Like I said, authenticity, integrity. You really need to write what you believe and what you feel and the experiences you've been through. So like for my novels, I really go into the depth of the human condition and like you might go through traumas and struggles, but that doesn't define you in the long run. That kind of idea. That's how my novels kind of shape out. But for kids, my values are teaching them good lessons. And like social and emotional learning, like I have a book on bullying, or being kind if you're being bullied, and then one on love and compassion, and that also has some silly things too, but it's really about my values in writing really are being authentic and genuine, and not putting on a persona that's not you.
I agree, Sue, 100%. You can actually throw it back at me. What are my values of being a talk show host?
Yeah, I would love to know.
It's the same thing for you. I'm not putting a mask on. It's for people who say that, I have a disability, but he doesn't really have a disability. First off, that's really shitty, and that's horrible karma, number one. So I wouldn't recommend that for anyone. But my value is, hey, I have a disability. I read and learn at a 5th grade high school level on the spectrum of wink, wink, being retarded. But look at what I accomplished for 9.5 years. Thanks to you, 951 episodes. So my value is, besides kissing people's butts, but seriously, my value is to show you the character of the person. I have a strong character. Mm-hmm. I have a strong weakness. But the values I'm teaching everyone out there is saying, if this guy is willing to put himself out there and show the world and make himself very vulnerable and say he's exposing himself, not in LA, of course, but exposing himself as in he's showing the world with a disability, but look at what he can accomplish. And that's one of my strong values.
Yeah, I think that's really admirable, because everyone has strengths, and you're playing to your strengths, and you're showing, it doesn't matter, people are just who they are, and you can do amazing things. So it's cool.
Absolutely. Next question I want to ask you, and honestly, you wrote thousands of books right now, so this question's kind of going to sound redundant, but I want to ask you regardless. When you first started writing, after your first 5 or 10 books, and you weren't really hitting your mark, you really weren't connecting with the audience, and people say, you've been doing this for so long, if it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. For an example, my brother likes to say to me, Keith, you've been doing your show for 9.5 years. If it's not going to take off, it's not going to. But how I'm going to reflect that to you is, obviously your career did take off, but hypothetically speaking, if your career did not take off, would you still do what you were very passionate about?
Absolutely, because for me, being passionate about something in life is paramount. And I mean, you define success the way that you define success. You can't let other people define that for you. So, I mean, for one person, success might be hitting that 6-figure income and, having that big house or that car, but that's not success for everybody. So, I mean, I don't make millions doing what I do. I mean, I do what I do because I love it. And I know, and when people read what I write, they do resonate with it. And it just gives me pleasure and success that I've connected with them on that level. For me, it's not about selling 1,000, 1,000,000 copies. It's about really doing what I love. So yeah, so that's fine. I mean, the way you define success is personal to you. And don't listen to anybody who says that you're not being successful. Look at you're here. So.
No, you're absolutely right. I talked to this one person, and it's like, well, you should have a goal, reach some money, you should do this, engage with your audience, blah 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 blah, throwing everything. That sounds wonderful. How about you help me do that? Oh no, if you can't do it yourself and it's not meant to be, then it's kind of like you're like this balloon. You're like, high hopes, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and someone says, nope, and you're going nowhere.
Yeah, and it's about finding that network of people that will lift you up and support you. And it's hard to do. Everybody's got their own agenda. And so really you have to be true to yourself and stay passionate and do what you want, do what you need to do for you.
Do you feel sometimes that you live in a fantasy world? Because people tell me about it all the time.
Absolutely, especially my mom. But yeah, no. Sometimes because I don't do a lot of practical things. Like I can't do accounting, I can't do engineering, like I can't do medical anything. So that's like practical in our society. What people define as practical success. I don't have really practical skills. I mean, I can tell an amazing story. I can speak in front of an audience without fear. Like I can weave a tale and I can make it entertaining. I mean, those are my skills. And so beyond that, who cares?
Absolutely. It's like I said. I listen to The Rock. He's a great entertainer. Mm-hmm. Not really a big fan of his wrestling style, but he is fantastic entertainer. And one of the things is, as long as you have a heartbeat and a pulse, do what you love. And
yeah, I love him. He's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the reason I bring that up is one of the books I'm going to mention is Tears of a Butterfly. Mm-hmm. And what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of blurry.
Don't worry, it will be on the video.
And Tears for the Butterfly was my second children's book. And that one is about, how if you put love and compassion and empathy out into the world, that it's just going to come back at you tenfold. So it's about loving and caring, about helping other people. And then, if you do that genuinely and not with an agenda, it comes back and you are cared for, you are loved, you are appreciated. And this does go into kind of like the natural part of death. And so and it goes into that, so when death happens, it doesn't mean that person is gone. It just means that they'll live in your memories, and then life goes on, nature continues, because it's just a cycle kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, a lot of that book is based on science, but it's also based on love and compassion and just being a kind person and just being genuine about it. So
well, you're jumping the gun, because that's the next subject I wanted to talk to you about. But the next one I actually want to ask you is, actually I'm looking on my phone while we talk. I'm horrible at pronouncing names, but the next one is about the mystery of the dog, and it has like these 3 characters on it.
It's called Monstery Donstery Dog. So
no, the cover of it's really beautiful, and if you're watching the video, it will be on the screen. And all your books, are they available on Amazon?
Yeah, they're all on Amazon, but they're also available on a site called AuthorSpots. So it's authorspots.com. And that one's a great online marketing site where authors actually keep 100% of their profits versus on Amazon where you keep maybe 30%. So yeah, AuthorSpots, but also on Amazon if people want to do that too. So, but yeah, Monstery Donstery Doc is a funny book. It's more of a silly, gross humor kind of book. And it was my son inspired it when he was 6. And it's based on the nursery rhyme Hickory Dickory Dock, but it's using monsters instead. And so there's a skeleton monster, an ogre monster, a ghost, but they're all mice. So it's really kind of fun. Because in Hickory Dickory Dock, the mouse ran up the clock, but in this one, it's the monster mice that are running up the clock, and they're causing mayhem, and they're really gross. There's a blob character, and he poops out some goo, and the ogre farts on everybody. It's a sick, gross, funny book. It's not quite, compassionate like my other books, but this one was just a fun romp. And I'm doing a second book of this style with the same artist coming up soon. So
no, absolutely. The last book I want to ask you is called Running Miss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Running in the Miss is one of my women's fiction novels. I have a trilogy, and the trilogy is called the Hearts Drawn Wild trilogy, and this is book 2, in that series. And this one is kind of in the middle ground where the main character has already suffered some real tragedy and is trying to learn that she's allowed to move forward and still have love, and it's okay to love again, even though she is super sad about losing somebody. And yeah, it just kind of it's in the idea where, yeah, bad stuff has happened, but it doesn't have to define your outlook for the future. But she's in the middle of figuring it out, and the miss in the title is the confusion. And then she's a runner, so she's just kind of trying to get her way through the confusion and trying to figure it out. So it's kind of fun.
And I do apologize for bustering it. It is running in the mess.
That's okay.
Sometimes I feel like that's my life.
Yeah, a lot of us are. I mean, I was in that realm for a good solid several years of my own life, just trying to figure it out. And you feel like you're running toward a goal, but you never are sure what that goal is, and you're never quite there. So yeah, it's a common, I think, for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to pass it over to you, but the last two questions I want to ask you is, one of the questions I did write up, I don't have it on this card, but say you wrote a really good book. How do you know, would say for an example, you wrote a book about me. But say that this one a bad pun about it. A bad pun, whatever the expression is. The point that I'm trying to make is, you have this character, and you say this character is about this, and then the character does something else. How do you put that character to rest? Or after the book is done, does that person still live on?
Yeah, it can go both ways. It really depends on the character. The reason I wrote 3 novels in a trilogy is because, like, one of the characters still had a lot of living to do and a lot of things to do, and she wasn't done. There were too many unanswered questions and too many, decisions she still had to make. But by the end of the second book, she's pretty settled. She knows what it is. But then there were other characters I needed to pick up and do for the third book. So it really depends on the arc of the character, but characters will surprise you. Maybe you have a plan for them, and then they just kind of they go off onto a tangent. And so it's really depends on, how you let the book go. I sort of plot, but I sort of don't plot, and it really depends on a lot of times the characters are going to steal it from you and do their own thing. But yeah, but a lot of times, you'll have a secondary character that you're like, wait, I need to tell more of their story. So you can pick them up and put them in a different book to try to get through with that. So, but yeah, I don't think there's any good rules about it. It's just, you got to feel the characters and embrace what they want to do.
I agree. For me, hands down, I will bring this to the grave with me. My favorite cartoon that I always want to be a part of is Dragon Ball.
Ah, good stuff. Yeah.
And it's funny because the main antagonist is Son Goku, but it also, you have the more like the anti-hero of Vegeta, and it's funny how they work in the chemistry with the two. But when they first introduced him, it's like, oh, he's the prince, and I'm, thank God I'm not going to want for this. They didn't really. He was supposed to be a one-off character. Here he is, and they just throw him away. Yeah. But people took to him so much that he's actually one of the biggest stars ever. And people wanted to know more about him. They wanted to hear about his story, his childhood. And there was the fan-made mangas, comic books, whatever you want to say. With the mangas, they actually make their own variations of the character. What if, Captain America, what if he was Russian America? Superman, what if he landed in Russia instead of the US? And actually, that's a video, if anyone wants to see it, called Red Sun Superman, available now.
I've heard of that one.
And there's so many great things out there. PlayStation used to have the black and white mini comics called Batman Year One, and those are pretty interesting. I can't find them anymore, but they're probably on YouTube. Pretty much, it's a comic book, but they made it like a video, but it's pretty much the comic book. Anyway, this is not
But
about me.
that's the beauty of creativity, and that's the like one of my favorite characters. I mean, it's a TV thing, but one of my favorite characters was supposed to be a one-off character, but he ended up carrying the series, like, you know, in a secondary way. So it's just like, yeah, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with the characters, but I love, like what you said with Dragon Ball Z, like that was supposed to be a one-off character, but it ended up being so important to the story. I mean, because, you know, fans do what fans do. And I see that in a lot of shows or books or things where you're thinking it's going to go one way, but then all of a sudden fans are very excited about something for whatever reason it is. And so, yeah, but that input, I mean, writers do that. I mean, we do that too. If I see that a fan is really into something, like I had some early readers of my third novel who really loved this one character, but the character was kind of small. But that made me think, oh, I have to do more with that character and explain her more. It didn't get as big as what you're talking about, but still, it's, you know, it's as a writer, you can't be like, I'm the only one who knows what the right thing is. You have to be able to listen, and you have to be able to, you don't have to do everything that fans want you to do, because then they take over. But you listen to it and just go, wait, that does make sense. Or, yeah, I think that would be a good idea. How can I make that my own? And, you know, it makes more beautiful art, I think.
Absolutely. Before I ask you the next question, I just want to throw my 2 cents in there, obviously. And my 2 cents is look at Breaking Bad. Jesse was supposed to be killed off in season 1. This show got so many Emmys and Oscars. Just imagine one little change.
Yep.
It really wasn't that good.
Yep. Yeah, he was such an important piece of that character, piece of that whole show, that I didn't know that he was supposed to be killed off, because he was just, in my head, he was like so essential to the plot. So that's interesting to know. I did not know that.
No, absolutely. Now it's the last 3 minutes. I'm going to pass it over to you. Was there anything you want to promote? Any new projects? How can our fans and listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, I have the books that I have, but I'm also working on a new novel, which is the beginning of a new series as well. And this one takes place in Mexico, because it stems from a point in my own life where I lived in Mexico, but I came back, and it's the what if I had gone back to Mexico and done what these characters are doing. Because we always walked past this hotel property and we're like, we should buy it and make it a thing and come back here and live here, and we never did it. But it's if we had done that. So it's kind of, it's still in the women's fiction, you know, era, but it's taking that idea of taking that leap of faith and really, you know, developing a story. So it's the beginning of a new world for me. I'm working on a couple more children's books, a bunch of short stories. And then, yeah, I've got a website that has all this stuff on it and all the information. It's victoriajhyla.com. So it's victoriajhyla.com. That has all the links to everything that I do and all the upcoming stuff. And again, I manage this website called Author Spots, and it's a place where authors can go to earn more money, you know, for the same price point that they're selling stuff on Amazon. They can sell it, you know, in a different way and earn more from it. So it's great profit. So.
No, absolutely. I have some great questions for you off the air. But let me actually just thrown out there. Have you ever thought about writing a book about a disabled character?
I've thought about it a lot. I just I don't have any people in my own life that I'm close enough to make it so it feels authentic to me. Yeah, I know. And now we're meeting. But yeah, so I mean, I have like a friend that has a son who has a disability, and I have to, you know, help him with a character sketch of that. But I'm going to have to research his disability so so it comes off as authentic, you know, and that's super important to me. I don't want to write a character and it comes off as token or comes off as cliche or it comes off as, you know, oh, I'm just doing it for effect. Like, that's not what I want to do. If I'm going to write a character like that, I heavily research into it. You know, I need people to talk to that, you know, have that kind of disability, because it's super important that it doesn't come off as like fake or weird or I'm doing it for a project just cause, so it's super really important for that authenticity piece. But
no, I agree with you 100%. That's the same thing with my talk show. My friend Scotty always likes to tell me, Keith, you missed the podcast boom. But everyone has a gimmick. He's a former wrestler. And there's other people, that have disabilities. What makes me different from other people who have disabilities? And yes, I do promote myself on Facebook and different websites. But the fact that I mentioned I have a blank disability, that's an automatic turnoff. How do I connect and say, this is a variety show. This is supposed to inspire people with and without disabilities. So that falls under the same category as writing a book, because when you're investing all your time and passion, almost and money, when you invest in so much time in this character, people want to get behind it. People want to see where's next for Keith Andrew. People want to see where's next for the beautiful and talented Victoria. These are characters people want to support. That's why they like Dragon Ball so much, because these characters will stand the test of time. No, I don't have my head up my ass or anything, but I'm just saying there's certain people that in a generation that come around that leaves an impression on somebody's life. And I hope one day, and I bet you feel the same way. It was your books, and your books are fantastic. And by the way, and like I said, the links are just available on the bottom. If you go to YouTube, Facebook, look up descriptions, it will be all the information on the bottom of the screen. But with your books, you're leaving an impression and an impact and a story about this character that's you, and you want to be remembered. So in every generation, there will always be, say, like a mark in time. You just want to be that placeholder, not but like a placeholder, but you just want to leave an impression where people can go back and remember you.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to leave their mark on the world in some way, and I mean, just the virtual fact that you are recording this podcast, I mean, this will be in posterity. Like, people can go back and watch this and see the cool things that you've done, and so that's a legacy in itself. I mean, honestly, it's not a numbers game. It's a passion game, I think. And, as long as you're happy with it and you're passionate about it, it doesn't matter what the other people think. But I mean, people need exposure. I mean, I volunteer with a lot of different groups that are marginalized too. And so it's important to me that they're not tokenized or, shoved to the side, or just like, oh, well, they're just X, Y, Z or whatever. And so it's important that, everybody who wants to have a voice gets a voice. And that's really important. So.
Absolutely. Now, stay tuned for Off the Air. I do have a couple questions. But our fans and listeners, make sure to like and subscribe to the Keith Andrew Network. And until we meet again, catch you later. Thank you, and have a good night.